Hello, everybody. Hi, Tom. Welcome to the live show on my channel.
Thank you for having me, Nancy. How are you doing?
I'm good. It is 3:18 p.m. here in California. You're in Palo Alto, right?
I am, and I may have to close my window if there's more helicopters because President Biden is in the neighborhood doing some fundraising in Palo Alto.
Oh, wow. I had no idea. Maybe
Yeah,
I might hear the helicopters too. I'm in Mountain View, so just right next door.
yeah. I saw a whole entourage of black SUVs cruising
Oh
around,
my
and a
gosh.
lot of activity.
Is it backing up the traffic? I have not gone out today yet. So.
They shortened the school days for both my kids.
Oh, wow.
And there's supposed to be some protests,
Oh my,
so should be lively. Yeah.
it is so Palo Alto, is what I could say.
Yeah, there's like a multi-million dollar fundraiser, and then there's a bunch of students protesting, and kids are coming home early, and then we're doing a podcast. So there
Yes,
you
we
go.
are. Well, it's not a podcast, it's a live stream.
Sorry. Yes, even better.
We're doing a live stream all about product reviews. And that's because Tom, who used to be a director of product at Google and who's also executive coach and investor, is very passionate about this topic, product reviews. Now, I would say because I got really lucky, I was coached in the beginning of my career at Meta to treat product reviews very seriously. And I could say that doing well and just doing my best in these product reviews really, really helped me level up in my career. I was also very lucky to receive additional equity 3 years in a row at Meta, which is kind of a big deal. And I am comfortable to say that it's largely because of the effort I put into each and every product review. Now, what was your experience like, Tom?
My experience was the opposite. So I was at Google twice, from '06 to '09, when it was a much smaller company and much more informal. And then I came back in 2016, where product reviews were much more formal, and the expectations were very different. And
Okay.
so I came back like almost like a person that was frozen in time, thinking like this was 2006 Google.
Okay.
And I remember product reviews in my early Google days, like you would prepare for them, but it was very informal, like even like with Larry and Sergey and Eric and stuff. But then when I came back in 2016, basically halfway through my first review, I was like, wait a minute. There's like a different expectation here.
So was it a 10-year gap?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. There was a 10-year gap from my first day at Google the first time to my first day at Google when I came back.
Uh-huh.
And I'm pretty sure that my early product review performance was a reason why I didn't do that well in a perf rating.
Okay.
And it was like, I think it was one of the first times I got like meets expectations. I was usually sort of an exceeds or strongly exceeds guy.
You're one of those. Okay. Tell
Yeah.
me
And I,
more.
and I was like, whoa, what's this? And I realized that, like, I'm sure there are many other reasons, but at that time, I wasn't killing it at the product reviews because I was treating them as like secondary.
Mhm.
My view was like, I'm here to ship products that accomplish their goals. My results will speak for themselves. Like, I'm doing hard work. The system will reward the hard work.
Uh-huh.
And that's largely true, but it's also true that the VPs and the executives that are evaluating you and determining if you're a high, mover and shaker, they only see a few data points on you.
Mhm.
And one of the big ones is the product review. And it's also one of the few where it's shared where all the people in calibration or perf or promo committee, like where they're all saying, oh, remember that review, right? And hopefully they'll say a really good one, but sometimes it's not. And so that was like 2016. And then over the years, I became much stronger,
Okay.
partly because of great coaching I had from my managers.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started imparting upon my teams like, hey, look, I get it. You wish you could just ship great products,
Yeah.
and you feel like this is a huge consumption of your time and you're offended by this process. I
Yes.
get it. I've been there. Like, we need to like accept that this is the way large companies work,
Yes.
or any companies at scale have to work. And so, yeah, my story is the opposite of yours. The good news is, like, eventually I got really good at them and ended up getting really strong feedback and
Yeah.
positive reinforcement in the ratings and such. But I learned the hard way. Let's put it that way.
So my first question was going to be, why are product reviews so crucial in leveling up? But I want to change this question now. What is the
Mhm.
purpose of product reviews? Why is it so
Yeah.
crucial?
There's a few. One is, hey, we just want like leadership. I'll just say from the so towards the end of my I did over 10 years total working at Google. My last few years, I was on the reviewer side.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Although, did some reviews as well as a presenter. But usually you're asking for a review for a few reasons. One is you just want to know how this team is doing and what's going on, because you've got a whole portfolio of other things and you want them to remind you, like, okay, well, how are we doing with this and what's going on with that? And so it's more of a status update, like
Mm-hmm.
state of the project kind of thing. And you need that because leadership, you're accountable. Everybody has a boss. So I want to make sure when I'm talking to my boss that, and if he's asking me like, how are these 5 products doing? Like, I've got a good answer. The second one reason is not status, but it's like a big decision.
Mm.
So, hey, this team has to make a call on addressing a major topic, and there's a fork in the road. And hopefully, the team has the judgment to know, like, okay, we probably need to get leadership to weigh in on this. So
Okay.
let's do a review. So that's the second reason. And then the third one is more of a top down, where the reviewers ask for one. And they're like, hey, we want to know what we're doing about the, GDPR requirements, or what we're doing about responsible AI guidelines, or what we're doing about the youth market, or whatever. And that's the most stressful one, where the PM will get an email saying, hey, so and so wants a review. Can you do it, like, in 2 weeks about this topic? And then you scramble. But yeah, those are like the 3 that I've seen the most often, like general status, team wants input on a fork in the road,
Yeah.
and then like executive privilege, like we want to go deep on a topic that we think is really important.
Why does status update need to be presented in a
Mm.
product review format?
Yeah, so one could argue that a concise deck or document could be emailed around
Mhm.
and or put in Slack or wherever. Um, the benefit of the review is partly the cross fertilization of perspective of the reviewers. So sometimes your status update, yes, it is a status update, but it's also like almost a foil for the leadership to talk about things that they care about,
Yeah.
or for them to settle things, or for them to kind of align. Oh, there's some sirens going on. Let me just close the window for a
Sure.
second, because looks like President Biden is getting some attention. 1 second.
Sure. Well, we have to make sure our national leaders are taken care of with
Yes,
highest level
yes,
of security.
yes, yes. There's like a lot of action going on. So you were asking like, well, why don't you just do it over email? So part
Right.
of it is because there's value in like you're presenting status, and then number one, now we've got uh, 10 pairs of eyes on it at the same time.
Okay.
And so someone may say, "Hey, what's going on with this trend here?" And either you can answer it for everyone else, or someone else can say, "Actually, like I'm more interested in this other question." And then the
Mhm.
two of them, sometimes like when a review goes well, the PM is driving it, but it's not entirely a lecture format. It's not me, the PM, presenting to everybody and they're all nodding and
Yeah.
whatever. There's like good kind of cross fertilization of discussion.
Mhm.
And so that's one of the benefits of a live review.
Mm.
I think the other one is sometimes they're going to want to go deep, and you can only go so far by asynchronous commenting in the document,
Mhm.
and they're going to want the back and forth. The third, and it's not a primary purpose, but it is a benefit, is it is one of the few signals and data points that leadership has to get a better sense of that PM and for talent assessment. And so, you know, it's not like a stated purpose, but it is a benefit to the organization. And, it works both ways in that if you really struggle at them, like it will ding you.
Yes.
And if you do really well at them, like people remember, there is a risk that there are some people who are really good at reviews that in the long run maybe the system over rewards it, but that's just the kind
That's
of
the system. Yeah.
that's the system. It's like job interviews. Like there
Yes.
are people that interview great and then they're like okay PMs.
Yes. That's absolutely right. So you mentioned multiple times the reviewers
Hmm.
would do XYZ or the reviewers will say XYZ. Who are these reviewers?
Well, the main one is your boss's boss,
Mhm.
and then the second one is your boss's peers.
Okay.
That's pretty much all that matters. Like if you've done it well, your manager is on the same page because you've pre-wired this with him and
Yeah.
or her, and they've given you plenty of input, and you're on the same page.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go to a review and you're not on the same page with your own manager, like that is a big no-no. But your boss's boss, you may not have had your skip level. You may not have had as much time to pre-wire them.
Yeah.
So you're going to want them to feel good. One, because they obviously are highly influential in your career, but also your project's resourcing.
Mhm.
And like, if you look good, then your boss, your manager looks good. Like everybody wins. So, and then your manager's peers are usually important for two reasons. One is like your project's going to have dependencies on their teams, or they're going
Mhm.
to have dependencies on yours. And then again, like they're going to be in performance review kind of committees, so they're going to judge you based on these reviews too. So it's a high stakes thing, and the way to think about it constructively is it's also a great opportunity to show the organization the quality of work that you're doing and the impact that your team is having,
Yeah.
and to get very valuable input and advice from super smart people.
Are these the reviewers, the super smart people?
Yes.
Okay.
By definition, they should be super smart if they've got, and I find that that's almost always the case.
Yeah.
Um, some of them are going to give you a hard time, but it's just going to make you better as a leader,
Yeah.
and they might be pointing out blind spots that you have, and it's good to hear it before, because the alternative is you go in a cave and you do your thing, and then your product, if it doesn't do as well as it could, there's a good chance you could have had some blind spot detection earlier and
Mhm.
gotten some help. I mean, there is a scenario where you get a bunch of feedback that isn't kind of, you don't agree with it and it turns out maybe in hindsight not to be the best. But I think more often than not, the people that are in the reviewer spots add a lot of value, and it's
Mhm.
your job to kind of synthesize it and pick, like, when are those times that I'm going to push back, and when are when are there times where I'm going to pick my battles, and then when
Yeah.
are times where I'm just grateful because they helped me find clearly a weakness in my plan.
Which takes me to the next question, which is what makes a product review successful? I
What
guess
makes
from the PM perspective.
um the first thing that came to mind was preparation. You know, a lot of early career PMs, they will go into product reviews thinking that they're gonna go off in a cave, build this amazing deck, present this amazingly brilliant plan, and there's gonna be just like applause at the end. And the sooner you, as a early career PM, can disabuse yourself of that vision, like the better off you will be. The advice I got was, don't think of these reviews as a performance. This is not like a presentation where you're trying to wow people. Um, think of it as a really productive, um, orderly working session where that you are sharing critical information in a very concise way.
Mhm.
You're laying out options for people. You're helping them see the trade-offs. You have a point of view, but you're still open to kind of different perspectives. And everyone leaves the review feeling like, okay, yes, we agreed on the direction to go. We have a shared worldview on why we chose that. We know what alternatives we considered. We know why we ruled them out. And we know what the next steps are. And we know how we're going to measure success. Like, that's great. So the preparation up front, it's kind of like negotiations. Like, all the work happens before the review, and it's in the pre-wiring, it's in the ping-ponging, the socializing, the early drafts of even just the exec summary are just, that's where all the magic happens. And the actual like slides and the actual day of the review, it's almost like, if done well, that should be like the easy part.
Tell us more about the pre-wiring.
So the biggest things to focus on are making sure you understand, why is this review happening? I can't tell you how many times I've been to reviews where I can tell the team has spent a bunch of time on these slides, and they're really like, they have some narrative, and they're taking me on a journey, and then by slide 3, if I'm the reviewer, sometimes I'm like, wait, hold on, I am interested in answering this question. It seems like you want to talk about this other question, which I feel is relevant, but not as important as
Hmm.
this question that I'm really curious about. And a lot of times you get this look like, oh, well, that's not what we're prepared for. I have 30 slides on this other question. And then you're like, oh, man, you feel bad as a reviewer. Like, I should have done a better job um, letting them know and making sure they
Mhm.
understood what I was hoping to get out of the review.
Yeah.
And I think as a PM, if you're be the one presenting, like, you probably should have triple checked, like, and so that pre-wiring is really important to kind of get alignment with your manager and the reviewers on, like, what is the purpose of this review? What question are we looking to answer? What are you looking from me? And usually if you just ask, like,
Mhm.
people are more than happy to tell you. The worst thing a reviewer has to do is 3 days before the review, and I've done this, and it's so frustrating, where you say to the PM that's presenting, you're like, "Hey, Nancy, I know we have a review next Tuesday, and I haven't seen the deck, and is there anything I can do to be helpful?" Which is a very nice way of saying like, what the hell's going on? Like, because if I'm your manager, like I'm gonna have to, I want this review to go successful as well because
Yes.
my peers and maybe my skip level is there. So that's like the first thing about making it successful, and the pre-wiring is aligning on the purpose of the review, aligning with the stakeholders. Like by the time the review happens, people should not be surprised by anything there. Like they should kind of have seen it already and
Mhm.
already given you their first round of feedback.
Yeah.
And if you're going into that review like cold, you might get lucky. That'll happen 1 out of every 20 times maybe. But the other 19 times is not gonna be fun. Not fun for you or the reviewers. Like, nobody wants a bad review. It's bad for everybody.
Do you socialize and pre-wire with every important leader in the review? What how I was coached
Mhm,
actually before I joined Meta when I was at a startup was
mhm,
we had these really intense review sessions with the VP of engineering.
mhm.
That's just the power dynamic in that company.
Okay.
And I was coached to socialize with everyone but the VP of engineering before the review. Because what was happening there was the VP of engineering would look around and they want to see all the nods. And if everyone's nodding, the VP of engineering would be like, okay. Now
Oh,
that was a dynamic at that particular startup.
interesting. Um, I think that's a good example of how every org has a different dynamic.
Yes.
So, I've been in situations where, um, let's just say it's not unusual for the VP of engineering to be a tough customer.
Uh-huh.
And I was of the position where if I reached out to that person early, I felt like, man, if I can get so and so to be okay with this, everyone in the room is going to notice that and they're all going to nod versus the other way around. So it depends on the leader and the dynamics. But to answer your question, logistically, it is pretty much impossible to pre-wire live with everyone.
Mhm.
So what I usually do and recommend to people is pre-wire with the most influential people for whom you suspect you have the most divergent perspectives.
Mhm.
Like if there's a super influential person where you're like always on the same page, it's good to pre-wire with them, but might be less impactful than pre-wiring with the person who you're like, oh, I know this person wants to advocate for option B.
Yeah.
I'm recommending option A. So then why not talk to them first?
Yeah.
And you may not, well, A, you might convince them to go A. B, secondly, they may convince you to go B in the
Mhm.
pre-wire. Might be the
Mhm.
right call.
Mhm.
Or worst case scenario, you go in with A, you acknowledge that some people want B, and you can uh, objectively lay out the alternatives
Mm.
so that they know that you didn't just sort of like sweep their opinion under the rug. So you can't pre-wire with everyone, but I would pre-wire with the people for whom have the biggest probability of derailing your review.
Right. Would that person be the right hand of the leader of the leaders?
It can. Sometimes that person can either they might have visibility into where everybody's head's at and then be like, look, Tom, you really got to figure out the answer to this question because that's
Mm.
what's on everybody's mind. And you
Mhm.
you might be like, oh, I didn't realize that. It doesn't always have to be the right hand of the leader of the leaders. It's what I found is like there in every review, in every org, there's two or three people who really um, create the biggest like wake in terms of after they've made their comment or input,
Mhm.
and it's usually for good reason because they're often in control of resources that affect everybody, and they're usually like whip smart and just have developed a credibility.
Yeah.
So you kind of know who those people are, and I would focus on those. They might be the right hand person of the leader of the leaders. It could be someone else. Could be like the head of data science everybody
Yeah.
listens to, or the eng lead, or the product lead, or the design lead. Like it really the business lead. Like it could be
Mhm.
anything, and it might change depending on the topic. There are some topics where the normal person who's usually the biggest voice, like they don't care, and getting them on your page, it doesn't matter because they're not going to weigh in anyway.
Mm.
So you've got to kind of figure out for the topic who are the two or three that you want to pre-wire the most.
Which also means part of the work is understanding what everyone's perspective is and really understanding their perspective, what they need in order to prepare the right way.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone has a different
Mhm.
perspective, and everyone, if they're at that level, they already have an opinion. Very few people don't have a point of view on these kinds of matters.
Mm.
So your job is to just ask them and figure out where they stand and how they got there, and see what you can do to help them fill in any blanks in terms of their assessment, and help them understand uh, what you think the team should do and why. And then also be open to modifying your views based on insights that they have, and kind of perspective
Right,
that you don't have.
right.
So yeah, it's sort of knowing your audience,
Yes.
and you just don't assume that, oh well, I'm the PM of this project and they should just get out of my way. Like, change the mindset to, I have an amazing board of directors that are very accomplished, and they also write the checks for my future rounds of funding.
Yes.
So, like, let's work with them so that
Yes.
we can all get a win out of this, because they want me to win. Because if I win, like, the company does better, everybody's happy. So let's
Yes.
just embrace it.
It's something that we really have to do because that's just how the system works if you wanna be in that type of environment.
Yeah, and a lot of people will say like, "Oh, I can't believe this. Like, I want to be the mini CEO." It's like, well, guess what? CEOs have bosses too. Like, everybody works for someone else.
Yes.
Even President Biden. so, it's just like, work with the environment and find the win-wins. And you can get to a place where reviews are actually, your ability to perform well in reviews and help your team perform well, actually is the best thing you can do for your team.
Mhm.
Because if the leadership understands your project, can weigh in early and often, can support you, then they're going to give you the resources, and they're going to give you the kind of support and prioritization that your team's going to need to really do its full kind of potential.
Absolutely. Which takes me to the next question. We talked a lot about what the PMs should do before the meeting, how the PMs should prepare for these reviews. But what about the execs and the reviewers? What are they looking for in these product reviews?
They want a concise assessment of whatever the situation and complication is. They want to know enough details so that they feel comfortable that your summary is sound. They want to know what are the big decisions that we have to make. Like, what are the key assumptions we're making, and what are the key choices we have to pick. And then for the choices, they want to know, what are the alternatives? What are you recommending? Why are you recommending that? And what are the risks? How are you mitigating them? How are you going to measure success? And then what happens next? And they want all of that, frankly, in like 20 minutes. And they want to be able to scan it in your exec summary slide in like 20 seconds.
Are they expecting the product team or the PM to have a recommendation?
There are times where the PM can say, "Hey, look, here's the situation. We have a bunch of options." I always prefer the PM to have a point of view.
Yeah.
Now, they might say, "Look, we're highlighting column B because we think this is the provisional recommendation,"
Yeah.
which I would interpret as like, okay, you're kind of 55-40, 45 here or 60-40. But at least you're telling me where you want to go.
Mhm.
And maybe we end up with like B prime. It's like, well, let's do B, but tweak it this way. So yeah, I don't really I don't like it when a PM says I don't have a recommendation. I feel like, well, you're asking me to make a call with less information than you have.
Yeah.
So at least you can give me your point of view.
Yeah.
Maybe the little bit better would then I don't have rec is like I definitely don't think we should do option C. And I'm torn between A and B, and here's how I'm thinking about it. That's a little better.
Yeah.
But you're a PM, like take a stand.
Are there cases where there's just this desire that is tops down, and yet you're still curious what the PM might think of the direction?
Oh yeah. There could be times where you're going in and you're like pretty sure you're gonna go, like maybe you might have even talked about it. I mean, that
Mhm.
does happen where it's like, okay, yeah, we're gonna have to do this.
Yeah.
And then it's like, all right, well, there's a review next week about it. And then we might be like, okay, well, let's have the review. And we'll be intellectually honest and keep an open mind,
Yeah.
but we might have a kind of provisional decision on our part.
Mhm.
But even in that case, you'd want the PM, like, okay, let's say I were in that situation where a direct report of mine had a product review coming up next Tuesday,
Mhm.
and I knew that leadership, like, we're kind of gravitating towards a particular option.
Yeah.
Then I would probably say to my PM, hey, there is a gathering consensus that we should go with option B.
Uh-huh.
But if you think that's the wrong call, you have to give us all of the options and help us understand what the implications are.
Okay.
But at the same time, B should be in your option set. So don't go into the review and not have option B available.
Okay.
And if you think it's the worst idea ever, I will support you if you have it. Help me understand why you think it's the worst idea ever,
Uh-huh.
and then I'll either try and give you some information that you didn't have that might change your assessment, or if you're like you still feel like you want to advocate for A and never do B,
Mhm.
then I would say to the PM, like, just be prepared that people are going to assume B is the right call. And if you're going to push back on it, you're going to have a really strong set of data
Right.
to overcome that.
So I have a question because we all know that it's a lot of work for the PM to put together this review and get ready. If the executives have a strong opinion on direction or a big decision, why wait until the product review to formalize the perspective? Why not just, I don't know, send an email and say we should do this?
Yeah. Uh, Sometimes that happens, but there are two reasons why it often doesn't.
Mm,
One is many companies have a culture where that's just really considered too hierarchical,
mhm.
and that they might celebrate a more bottoms up culture, or they have some values around team empowerment. So, as leaders who want to live those values, what we may do is say, okay, we think we should do option B, but let's hear out the team, because maybe the team's going to give us information that we didn't have.
So you're open-minded. That's why
Yeah,
you're doing
you
this. Okay.
try. You try. The second is you do, from a process point of view, you do want the team to have had the opportunity to make their case. So even if they want to, if you might know that they want to do option A
Mm,
and you want to do B, and if you just send an email out saying, hey guys, we're going to go with B before the review, the risk is like, well, number one, like you missed information. But number two, it's like you didn't even hear us out.
mm,
Like we're so close to the customer, we're so close to the product, you didn't even bother
okay.
to let us make the case. So, for those reasons, a review still makes sense. And, at the end of the day, people are trying to do the best thing for the shareholder. So if you really have a case why A is the best option,
Yeah.
nothing is guaranteed. Even if people go into a meeting thinking it's B, if you're like, hey, B seems like a bad idea because we always assumed these things. I now have data, new data,
Mhm.
that shows actually B is the right way to go and that A has these new issues that we didn't know about.
Yeah.
Most leadership teams would be like, oh, wait a minute, then maybe we should think about B. Tell us
Okay.
more.
Fair. That's fair because leadership team is standing on top of the mountain. They see the top of the trees.
Hmm.
But the team is on the bottom of the mountain. They see grass. And so the team's perspective, even though we're looking at the same world, the world looks different because the perspective is different.
Yep. Yep. I think that's true. I also think leadership may see like El Nino wind formations coming in.
Yes.
That's like, yeah, no, we don't want to plant any more trees over there. That's not going to work out. Like there's like a forest fire coming
Yeah.
from the east or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and there's also cases where the team's like, hey, actually, you didn't see what's happening at the base. There's all
Right.
this growth and there's this new biome or whatever.
Yeah. Lots of
Uh,
mushrooms.
yeah. So it can work both ways. And that's why at the review, you've got a meeting of
Yes.
perspectives.
Yes.
And the worst thing a PM can do, even if it's true, which rarely it is, uh, the worst thing a PM can do is say like, "Oh, those reviewers, they don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
They just don't get it." Usually, they do get it. In fact, they get things that you don't have visibility into that they may not even be able to share with you.
Yeah.
And secondly, like they've been around, the system has put them in these positions for a reason.
Yes.
Doesn't mean they're, infallible, but one thing is for sure, if they sense that you are not a honest partner
Mm.
and you're just, dismissive or unwilling to compromise or whatever, like
Yeah.
they're not going to want to bet on you.
What if what if they what if the PM just says yes all the time?
That's also not good,
Right.
although it's better than the PM that says no to everything.
Okay. I
I
love that.
I think the PM that says yes 85% of the time is ideal.
Yeah.
And the 15 where they say no, they are saying no about things for which they have made it clear that they understand where you're coming from and why you believe we should go in one direction.
Mhm.
And then they say, I have some information that I've discovered or I've
Yeah.
come across that I think changes the equation. And here's what
Perfect.
it is. Then it's like, okay, he gets what I'm, or they get what I'm saying, but they found new information that changes my calculus. And therefore I should reassess. Like,
Yes.
then it's great because now this PM has helped save me from advocating for something that wasn't going to work as well. And they've walked me through how they got there. And it all starts with, okay, Tom, you believe we should go after this market
Mm.
for these reasons. That's what I'm hearing. And I'll say, yeah, that's exactly right.
Mhm.
And what we found is one of those assumptions is not aligning up with this new data that we pulled.
Hmm.
And then I'll be like, "Oh, interesting. Tell me more," you know? So I think yeah, yes all the time is not great because then you're just because then when leadership changes his mind and then you say
Yeah.
yes again, it's like, well then what is this person
Right.
like they're just, they're not really adding a lot of value.
All great points. I have one last question before we wrap for the
Mhm.
day. And that is, we often hear people say, you got to frame the problem. But what does it mean? What is good framing and what is bad framing?
The best framing is where you in your deck you have this one slide that everyone wants to sit on.
Hmm.
And they're like, "Hey, let's go back to that slide 7. This is," and everybody's like, "Yeah, this is the question."
Yeah.
Right? And so why do they want to keep going back to that slide? Because usually a lot hinges
Hmm.
on the decision on that slide.
Yeah.
So it could be like, oh, we're trying. That slide's about whether we should focus on this customer segment or that customer segment, or it could be more kind of strategic. Like, do we see this product as a productivity tool or a community building
Right.
tool or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Or do we measure success by this metric or that metric?
Hmm.
And because everybody gets that, depending on the outcome of that question, the whole strategy and all the other subsequent decisions become much easier.
Yeah.
And everybody then knows, like, okay, well, this is the thing we got to figure out.
Yeah.
So if you frame the problem well, you can very concisely lay out the trade-off that needs to be made and also explain what the implications of the different choices are. And so for me, like I would say 8 times out of 10, that slide is the some table of some form sort where there's a bunch of options,
Yeah.
and they're not like you can make unlimited tables of options, but it's the table of options about the question that kind of changes everything.
Hmm.
And that's hard because sometimes people dwell on something that's
Low level.
too
Yeah.
low level,
Hmm.
and then sometimes they go way too high level,
Yeah.
and it's like, great, hey, we're not in annual planning, we're not at some offsite.
Yeah.
So like sometimes you can go too high,
Yeah.
but you got to kind of calibrate for what's the right level for the right situation. So great framing is the thing where it's not where everybody agrees. It's actually usually where the people can be in a position where they can feel psychologically safe and talk about their differences of opinions. And ideally, like at the end of the meeting, maybe we don't all agree, but we know what the decision was, or we got guidance from the most senior leader about like
Yeah.
where they want to go or whatever. That's great framing. And that's why there are some reviews where you basically spend most of the time on that one slide and
Yeah.
it's still and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, we didn't get through the rest of the slides. And you're like, no, that was the slide. And there are other reviews where you get through all of the slides and you're like, I don't think we talked about the question that we should have been talking about,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
then that's a shame because
Yeah.
all those people's time is very, very hard to get and valuable.
The startup I was talking about where the power dynamic is centered around the VP of engineering, he would often say in those meetings that this is the most expensive meeting in
Mm,
this entire company.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, not only because of their time, but also whatever gets decided has
Mhm.
massive downstream
Yes.
impact.
Yes.
And if nothing gets decided, either everybody's blocked or they end up diverging
Yes.
through inertia. And then we have to do a big reset later on.
Yes. Which is even
So,
more expensive
yeah.
down the
Yeah.
line.
Yeah. Yeah. So, good product reviews are like good proactive preventative healthcare. Like it
Love
saves
it.
you so much down the road.
It's like flossing your teeth.
It's very healthy.
So tell us about how we can work with you more to really nail our next product review?
Well, I'm so glad you asked, Nancy. I do have a Maven class that is about this topic.
Hmm.
People are welcome. It's a live small cohort, and it's mostly interactive exercises where we're going through exec summaries, we're going through real slides, we're critiquing. It's a lot of kind of like hardening of and practicing through doing. The other thing I do coaching as well if you want one-on-one kind of support. And then I post a lot of content about this and other PM topics on LinkedIn and Substack and have a podcast as well.
Love it. You said that we would be working on real presentations. What does real mean? As in we are presenting our product review in the course, or you are showing a real deck that you've
Both.
had in the past?
Both. So one is I have some materials that I share, and we will like the first class for my product review class. I actually bring 3 or 4 executive summaries around the same topic that are good and bad in different ways, and we kind of look at them together and critique
Okay.
them. And then in subsequent classes, I ask the students to bring their exec summary. Could be around a fictitious topic where I have a
Mm.
case study I give them. A lot of times they'll bring actual work product and then
Mm.
they'll obfuscate some numbers and names and
Sure.
things like that. And then the third class we do usually like that money slide, the trade-off slide. And then the fourth class, we focus on actually delivery, like the delivery of the message and fielding of questions and things like that. So it's kind of like a boot camp.
Love it.
But yeah, I also am happy if people just, follow the content that I put out there for free.
Well, you could teach a million different topics. Why this topic?
One is it is such an important skill, not only for PM's careers, but for organizations to do well.
Hmm.
Actually, like in the current cohort, I have a couple people from a company where they're the reviewers
Mm.
and they're trying to implement more structured
Yeah.
reviews because their company has grown from 50 people to 500. And they're
Yeah.
like, hey, we can't run the company the way we did when we were 50 people. So it's just super important. The second is that it is not a traditional skill. Like when I did it, I thought, oh, hey, I have an MBA and I know how to I used to work in consulting. It's not the same. Like
Mm.
PM product reviews, it's like its own genre.
Yeah.
And so I just felt like, hey, it's not the sexiest topic. It's not like, hey, tune an LLM or something, but it's super important. And I think the third thing is like I've I'm a coach who used to suck at product reviews and then became really good at them.
Yeah.
And I've kind of learned the hard way. And if I can help people learn the lessons without having to, get that meets expectations, like why not? We just skip over that part.
Actually, getting a meet expectation is not terrible.
It isn't, no, and it is a rating that a vast majority of PMs will get.
Hmm.
And one could argue like it's meeting expectations in an organization that's very highly capable and whatever.
Yeah.
So that is true. But I will tell you I was much happier with subsequent reviews where I got different ratings.
Aren't we all? We
Yeah.
always want to be at our best. That's why this is important.
Yes, indeed. And so hopefully people can, I wish everyone the best. If you had a bad review, don't worry. There's always another one.
Mm.
What you can do is whatever anxiety and kind of anger or emotion or frustration you have from your last review, which maybe didn't go that well, channel it
Yeah.
into making the next one better. You don't have to nail the next one, but there are things that you can do, and your manager will want you to succeed. So just
Mhm.
put the time in, ask for the help, and it'll be better. It's
Unless
a
your
skill that you can.
manager is insecure, but that is a different topic. We can save that for
That
the
is
next live
that's
stream.
a whole nother episode. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Tom, for joining me on my live stream. And thank you for those who are tuning in live. And also hello to those who will tune in later. And we'll see you, Tom, in your Maven course.
Look forward to it. Thanks,
Thank you,
Nancy.
everybody. Until next time, take